It's very nice. Thank you. So
What is
we are about to start our program. Hopefully, we'll have
Right.
a different kind of discussion throughout this program. And at the beginning of the program, myself, Suman Chakraborty from Department of Anthropology in Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, India. And I welcome all the dignitaries from the different parts of the world who have joined our international lecture series on historical development of anthropology in Asian countries. Now, actually, this event, we have started this event in the 11 August 2021, and we have came across the different countries, started from Philippines, then Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, China, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Republic of Korea, Bangladesh, and today is the day for Nepal. Then today we have our distinguishing guest and invited speaker, Dr. Kapil Babu Dahal. He's assistant professor and the Central Department of Anthropology, Tribhuvan University of Nepal. And this is just the beginning of our program. Now, I would like to share this platform to our moderator, Dr. Ratna Tayang. Ratna, kindly
Yes,
proceed.
yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Dr. Ratna Tang on behalf of the Department of Anthropology, DNGC, Arunachal Pradesh, India, Brinali Datta Mahavidyapith, West Bengal, and the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Sri Lanka. Extend a very welcome to all of you to this 11th lecture of our international lecture series on historical development of anthropology as a discipline in Asia. Now, I would like to request Dr. Taraka Ananda, Assistant Professor, Department of Anthropology, University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Sri Lanka, to give the welcome address. Over
Thank you
to
very much, Dr. Ratna. Uh, this is the 11th lecture series that we are conducting under the historical development of anthropology as a discipline in Asia. For first of all, I would like to welcome today's invited speaker, Dr. Kapil Dahal, Associate Assistant Professor, Central Department of Anthropology, uh, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. Welcome you, sir. And also, I'm welcoming organizing committee of the lecture series from the Sri Lanka, all of who are participating today, and also Principal DM, MDM, Dr. Anubra Bandyopadhyay, and Principal DNGC, Dr. MQ Khan, and coordinator of the lecture series, Dr. Suman Chakrabarty, Head Department of Anthropology, MDM, and also joint conveners, Dr. Ratna, Dr. Susmita Sen Chowdhury, always participating and always contributing their support to us to conduct this platform in a successful way. And also members, Dr. Pushpalata Tigga, Mr. Gopi Riba, Mr. Tarushi Poli, and Saraswati Roy. All the members are welcome for today's lecture series. And also especially the participant, especially Professor Joshi and other distinguished guests participating from all around India and all around the world. All are welcome, warmly welcome to today's lecture series. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, without further delay, now let me take the privilege to introduce our today's
Sir,
speaker
can hear anything?
very briefly. Our today's speaker is Dr. Kapil Babu Dahal, Assistant Professor, Central Department of Anthropology, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. He received his master's in medical anthropology from University of Amsterdam, Netherlands, and PhD in anthropology from Tribhuvan University, Nepal. He has been teaching anthropology since 2009 and specialized in medical anthropology. He is the author of a book, Conflict, Genders, and Body Politics in Nepal, Anthropological Engagement with Threatened Lives and Well-beings of Women, published in 2018. He regularly publishes articles in national and international referred journals and chapters in many edited books. He has also completed many research projects. There are many things to speak about him, but the time is short. I now welcome Dr. Kapil Babu, sir, to share his thoughts and wisdom. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ratna. Thank you, Dr. Suman, the coordinator of this program, Speaks Talk series, and all the distinguished committee members, and all the senior anthropologists, and all the colleagues. I'm privileged to be part of this journey of your efforts to have anthropological knowledge exchange among the South Asians and beyond about anthropological development in Asia. I am very much glad that you have begun, and it is 11th in the series. I think maybe it's too early to suggest something, but probably the title of the series sounds so catchy that it has to be published somehow in certain form as a edited volume that how historical development of anthropology took place in Asia, not only in South Asia, and probably the respective author themselves and some more invited speakers can contribute on that. I'll I will be very much glad to contribute as a part of the team if something happens in the days to come. I think Dr.
Yes,
Suman
yes,
and the team
definitely.
can think about this.
Yes, yes,
And
definitely. Thank you.
uh, and today, initially I was thinking of having a bit longer presentation, but later on I realized that since I can talk so many things about the about the development of anthropology in Nepal, so I will say only I will briefly provide some hints about the historical development of anthropology in Nepal, and later on, I think I will try to open up the floor as soon as possible so that we can have dialogic conversations. And I think so far I know we are much little familiar about how anthropology is emerging and evolving in our respective countries. So your queries will be very much welcome. So I will try my presentation from my side a bit confined and limited, and so that we can have more time for the conversations. Now I will begin. I will go to my presentation. My presentation, I've tried to roughly divide it into four different parts. Initially, I will talk about anthropological researches taking place in Nepal from historical point of view, how they began and how it seems up to present now, and teaching anthropology in Nepal. So, as an academic discipline, we have, as we know, I'm trying to focus on these two aspects. And interestingly, probably it is same with other parts of the world also, and in South Asia as well, that anthropological research in Nepal began quite earlier than anthropological teaching in Nepal. So the history of research and teaching are quite different things in Nepal, though later on they converged, but initially they were quite different. So I will talk about these two aspects and how I can see. I will not say that this is the objective reality, and how I see the present scenario of research and teaching in Nepal later on after the convergence, and then my critical perspective about certain pitfalls about the up to the contemporary time, and what could be the ways forward as part of the presentation. So these roughly these four areas will be part of my presentation. Now I'll begin with anthropological research in Nepal. If you look at some literature produced by native Nepalese anthropologists and anthropologists from abroad, foreigners working in Nepalese anthropology, you can see they have divided rise of anthropological resources in Nepal in different time periods. Uh, Roughly, we can divide this into three different phases. The first phase would be till 1950, the rise of anthropological research in Nepal till 1950, how it took place and who began. And the second part will be from 1950 to 1990. These two periods, as we know, 1950 is a significant demarker in world politics and societal context as well. And Nepal is not different from that. And some specific political historical events took place during 1950. So that period had been divided. So in 1990, there is another historical political change in Nepal as well, along with the world, and because we have establishment of multi-party system in 1990, and that has opened up uh, anthropological development in different ways. Especially, it has shaped anthropological research in Nepal in particular way. So from 1950 to 1990, then 1990 onwards, till now. So I will begin with the first phase, that is till now. From roughly, anthropologists divide this period from 1811 to 1950. It's because some historians, especially the political historians from the West, they have produced certain monographs about people and culture of Nepal and political system about Nepal in 1811. So they consider that it began from 1811. For example, Kirkpatrick Kirkpatrick produced a legendary monograph in 1811. Hamilton produced another legendary monograph in 1819. Brian Hudson, a little later, produced in 1874, produced another legendary monograph about the basically the political history of Nepal, but it also touches some other areas like social, cultural, and other anthropological concerns. So how, though we have seen that anthropological history began with the history of colonialism in different parts of the world, especially from the West. Uh, as Nepal was not directly colonized by any of the colonial uh, ruler in the past, so there is no direct linkage between colonialism and development of anthropology in Nepal. However, since we have seen the presence of British colonial uh, empire in South Asia, including in India, so uh, their presence in India and other parts of South Asia has also affected anthropological development in Nepal as well. So we can see that most of the writing, what we can regard as containing some anthropological information today, they were written initially by the Western scholars. And most of them were not trained in anthropology. Like as I mentioned, the name Kirkpatrick, Hamilton, Hodgson, Brian Hodgson, all these people, they were not trained in anthropology, but they have their knowledge production somehow looks contains anthropology. They began to describe different ethnic caste groups about almost 2 centuries ago. Most of them worked for British colonial government in India. So we can see that uh, these colonial authorities who served in India, they began to work and they began to explore about Nepal. They traveled to Nepal and stayed some time, and they did collected somehow some kind of first-hand information about different caste ethnic groups. And ironically, they collected much information about uh, non-Hindu ethnic or tribal groups rather than Hindu caste groups. There is some kind of political economic implication of that as well. I will briefly talk about this later on as well, because they needed uh, brave people to recruit for their military presence in South Asia and all over the world. So they were more interested about warrior and martial groups. So that is why the people whom we call as Gurkha nowadays, especially other than in Nepal, those recruited by the British people and even now by mostly by the even in serving in Indian army from as a Nepali citizen, such as Rai, Limbu, Gurung, Mogar, these ethnic groups people these British initially these Britishers studied more about these ethnic groups, and that tradition is still going on among the British anthropologists for a long time. They kept on doing research about uh, these tribal and ethnic groups in different parts of the Nepal. Then we can I would like to take you towards the second phase of anthropological research, which I have demarcated between 1951 to 1990. And I regard this as the growth of anthropology, as the period of growth of anthropology in Nepal. The earlier one was there was rise in anthropological research, what we can regard as anthropological research. But in this period, the real anthropological research, that is, the people trained in anthropology from Western universities and the people from UK, USA, Germany, Japan, France, and very few Indian nationals and few Nepalese people also began to conduct anthropological research in Nepal. And this period, 1951, I am regarding this as a demarcation line because there was, we used to have familial, uh, tyrannical political system, roughly, which was overthrown roughly during the time of Indian independence. As you were, India became independent in 1947. Those political leaders were residing actually in exile in India, different parts of India, and those who were educated and they have some kind of liberating ideas, they began to struggle after this familial tyranny, the Rana regime. Actually, this Rana dynasty, they have kept the ruling monarchy also under their custody, a kind of custody. So Ranas were the powerful ones, and the Nepal was almost virtually closed for the outside world. Only Britishers were allowed among the international. There was Nepal at that time. Nepal has political and diplomatic relationship only with uh, formal political diplomatic relationship only with British India, only the Britishers actually. So Nepal was virtually closed for all the people outside of Nepal. So there was no possibility of doing any kind of research in Nepal. So only after the political change of 1951, the democratic change, Nepal became open for the people outside the Nepal. So that opening up uh, paved the way for anthropological research as well. Different people from all over the world, especially from the Westerners, as I mentioned earlier, especially the UK, as we can see, as we can guess, UK has some political, economic, military interest in South Asia, and thus they began to overflow to conduct anthropological research in Nepal. So, however, their research area and people were not different. They even still kept on doing research about Sherpas, as you know, the great mountaineer people, including Tenzing Norgay, the Sherpas of Nepal. So in 1964, Hammendorf, a British anthropologist, Cambridge trained, he conducted research about the Sherpas of Nepal and came up with a monograph called The Sherpas of Nepal, which it is also considered a legendary anthropological contribution even now. Many scholars conducted research on other ethnic groups as well, including Thakali, Gurung, Magar, Rai, Limbu, and other Himalayan people. So that kept on going on. And their focus was in different aspects of initial anthropological interest. That is, as we know, initially anthropologists were doing research on general ethnographic research instead of focusing on particular area. So there, if we go through their monographs, we can see that they have touched about family system, kinship, marriage, economy, traditional political organization, different social organizations, religion, history, myths and legend about the origin of that particular ethnic group, rituals, and few have begun to study about caste system as well. And even among the marriage, polyandry, few group people of Himalayan region, among the Himalayan region, they have polyandrous marital practices system, and that has also attracted some anthropologists to conduct ethnographic research on them. And later on, some anthropologists also conducted research about women and gender issues also. So in this period, initially, the latter part of this period began to see some Nepalese anthropologists, especially trained in universities in India and some Western universities in UK and USA. They also began to conduct anthropological research in Nepal. So during this period, if we see about the published material about ethnographic uh, materials, most of them were published in English, but some other anthropologists who were from non-English speaking zones, for example, Germany, Japan, France, they also began to publish their contribution in their own respective languages as well. And ironically, or it's not ironical that none of them have published any material in Nepali language. The official language of Nepal, most which more than 90% people speak, and more than all the educated people can read and write. So it's we can see that ethnographic, probably it is the same case with other parts of South Asia as well, that we produce or the foreigners have produced so much and information and knowledge, anthropological knowledge about our respective society and culture, but they are exclusively produced in the language of the ethnographer, anthropologist. Though in anthropology we claim that we do try to understand, try to catch up the perspective of insiders' perspective of the people we study, but we never bother to produce them in the native language. That's very much ironical. And then comes the third phase, which I regard as expansion of anthropological research from 1990 till the current time. In even in 1990, we have democratic movement in 1951, 50. There was multi-party democratic system, but later on, then time king in 19 where it was around 70, I exactly forgot. In 19 around 1972, the multi-party democratic system was overthrown by the then time king, and so there was some political turmoil and confusion in Nepal. And later on, in 1990, there was another second political movement in Nepal, and multi-party system was again. Oh, sorry, I can see that you haven't heard. Is it? Am I audible?
Yes,
I
yes,
think
you are audible.
You are audible.
You are
my
audible.
speaker is 100%.
Yes,
One
yes.
of the gentlemen mentioned that he couldn't
I
hear.
think
Probably,
I think his speaker is not working well. Okay,
yeah,
you can
probably.
continue.
So,
Audible, sir. Yes, audible.
Sorry, sure, thank you. In 1990, there was another political democratic movement, and we again have democratic multi-party system, re-establishment of multi-party system, and as we can see in the global context,
You're audible.
also in the global context, uh, one gentleman has raised the hand, but Gogi Tama, can you hear?
No, you can continue. Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Kapil, you can continue.
Yeah,
No
sure.
problem.
Yeah, sure. Uh, in 1990, as we can see, there is not, it's Nepal is not exception for the democratic movement. We can see that we we have witnessed and heard about the fall of the Berlin Wall and dissolution of the USSR and democratic movement all over the world. So we can see that as a part of the continuum even in Nepal. So and this has also opened up uh, new social political terrain for the evolution of new social political terrain in Nepal. And we can see that different avenues of researches have begun to be interest for the anthropologist, especially about democracy, urbanism, urban culture, and moreover that ethnicity. In new political environment, the different ethnic groups, though Nepal is considered as smaller in size, probably it is because we are situated between two Asian giants, China and India, but actually we are not smaller in terms of the population's diversity. We have more than 125 ethnic tribal groups within this territory, besides different caste groups. And you can see that caste groups in Nepal are also of two types. People residing in Tarai, the southern part of Nepal, along the Indian border, have different kind of caste system, which is almost closer to Indian caste system. And the caste system practiced in the hilly region of Nepal. I'm saying hilly because in mountainous area, people residing over there are not part of the caste system. They are mostly they are the different ethnic and tribal groups. So the caste system in hill area and caste system in southern part of in Nepal is quite different. And so different kind of there are different kind of ethnicity issues and concern and different kind of dynamic relationship between these different kinds of caste and ethnic groups of Nepal, and they began to come into forefront, and the friction between different caste ethnic groups began to open up, and they began to come forefront and during in this new political environment, new democratic environment. So anthropologists, especially initially the foreigners, especially the Britishers and American anthropologists, they began to pay more attention to these areas, ethnicity. But nowadays, even Nepali anthropologists are doing research on ethnicity. Uh, in addition, population and resources, issues around demographic trends and their effects on social structure in general, economy and change, conflict, uh, the Maoist-led conflict and other social conflict among different caste ethnic groups uh, also began to be addressed by anthropological researches. As some of you might have known, but I guess many of you may not know about the Maoist-led armed conflict in Nepal. We had about 10 years long armed conflict, what the Nepalese Maoists regarded as uh, people's war, but many people consider that it's Maoist people's war. So that people's war lasted from 1996 in new political democratic environment. The democracy came up in re-established in 1990, and Maoists raised the arm against the multi-party system and democratic structure in 1996, and that lasted for about 10 years with and ended with the peace agreement between the warring Maoist faction and the then time government of Nepal in 2006. So neither they were in absolute loss position nor they were in absolutely winning situation. So there was a kind of compromise between the government and the Maoist, and the war ended. And so many anthropologists, especially anthropologists from West, and also native anthropologists also conducted research about different aspects of conflict, why conflict emerged, who were the affected people, how the conflict affected the people involved in warring zone, and especially the unarmed people, the commoners. And actually, my medical anthropological research for Amsterdam University was also about the requirement for my dissertation was also about the suffering of widows of both sides, Maoist and rebels, and also the security forces of Nepal and other common people. These widows suffering and their displacement, suffering due to their widowed and the displacement. That was my main research question of my study. So many anthropologists, native anthropologists, and foreign scholars conducted research about these issues also. Even now, uh, though the peace process has ended, but somehow the it has not complete fully. So there is still some kind of friction going on among the political, especially not at the popular level, but between the political parties. And sometimes, as we can see, we can guess different political parties try to use these issues in their favor and against other opposing political parties. Uh, these political uh, in Nepali context, these different kind of political changes that took place in 1950, 1990s, armed conflict during 1960, 96 to 2006, and establishment of republicanism in 2008, and federal republicanism establishment in Nepal had began to have new constitution in 2015, where now we have become one of the probably the last federal country in the world, I guess. In 2015, Nepal became the federal one. So all these political upheavals have some kind of influence in anthropological research in Nepal, and many anthropologists were interested in conducting different kind of researches. For instance, recently, since the federalism has newly set up in different parts of the country, so how this federal system has affected service delivery in different areas has become the interest for many anthropologists. And so anthropology, not only for the professional anthropologists, but also for our graduate and PhD students are conducting research in these areas. So anthropological research and especially native anthropologists' contribution also began during this period. So this has opened up to come up with new topic of interest among the anthropologists, and foreigners, especially the Western anthropologists, they were interested mainly in Himalayan and hill region of Nepal to conduct ethnographic research, but with the expansion of expansion of interest among Nepalese and native anthropologists, we have begun to conduct research in different parts of the country, uh, even especially the areas where foreigners have not dared to go or they hesitated to go there. So, for example, even I conducted my PhD in southern part of Nepal, which is one of the rarely and trust area by the foreigners, by the foreign anthropologists, especially those from USA and UK, because many foreigners means people from USA and UK are conducting research in Nepal. Only few others are there as well. So this is roughly the uh, broader picture of anthropological research in Nepal. Now, I would like to move towards history of teaching anthropology in Nepal. It's not larger. Uh, this part of presentation will be a bit brief. So, if we see, we can link anthropological research from 1811, almost 200 years ago, but the officially formal anthropological training began in Nepal only in 1973 with the establishment of one institution called Institute of Nepal and ACI Studies, then time called INAS. It was also part of the research center, as a part of the research center at Tribhuvan University. Now, this has been changed as Center for Nepal and ACI Studies, CINAS. Initially, it was CINAS, and now it is called CINAS, CNAS, CINAS at Tribhuvan. It's a social science research wing at Tribhuvan University. And at that time, INAS used to provide diploma training in anthropology and sociology. At that time, we used to have joint program in anthropology and sociology. So they began to contribute in teaching and research in social sciences, including anthropology. So we had formerly anthropology department at that time also, joint sociology and anthropology department at Tribhuvan University in 1981 only. So that was that department was called Central Department of Sociology and Anthropology, CDSA. And we probably you are not familiar about the structure of Tribhuvan University. We have a collegiate system. I guess most of the universities in India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, you don't have collegiate system. Your university is located in one place, but Tribhuvan University operates as a collegiate system. That means we have central office located in Kirtipur of Kathmandu, and my department, Central Department of Anthropology, is located over there. But there are about 36 central departments of science, humanities, medical science, engineering, forestry, and all the science and social science humanities departments. Besides these central departments, we have 68 affiliated constituent colleges, that is all spread all over Nepal. That means they are 100% government colleges. Tribhuvan University is also a government college. So these 68 constituent colleges are spread all over the country. So they are 100% government colleges, but they run as part of the Tribhuvan University. And more than that, there are more than 1,000 private colleges affiliated with Tribhuvan University. They are also spread all over the country. So we have probably Tribhuvan University is one of the biggest among the biggest 10 university in the world, I guess. We have more than 5 lakh students. So that has some pros and cons. I see more disadvantages than advantages. If I were the powerful one, I will split these 1,000 colleges into probably 20 or 50 universities. So I can simply say, I can simply write, I began to write about this, about the need of the downsizing of the university. But there is some political benefit for the political leaders and especially the student leaders to have this big university because of its resources and the political power they can acquire. So I don't think that it will be it will become more smaller in size in near future. So I'm referring that. So in college, in this kind of collegiate system, so till now I'm talking about anthropology at Tribhuvan University. So this and so most of the in 1981 also, anthropology department was established at the central department of Tribhuvan University in Kirtipur. So uh, since there were no anthropology, sociology faculty at that time, so five uh, some of the bright students they selected at that time by the university uh, to pursue their MA in selected universities. I think it was two people were sent to Banaras Hindu University for sociological training, and three anthropologists were sent to three people were sent to Pune for anthropological training. It was in 1978. So they were the first generation of anthropologists in Nepal. They established the anthropology department in Nepal, and uh, so they acquired anthropological and sociological training from different universities in India. So at that time, we used to have joint programs, joint masters program. So that means, for example, initially our education system was annual system, so 2 years long education. So in the first year, there used to be 5 papers, and in the second year, there were 4 papers and 1 dissertation, so 10 papers altogether. Out of these 10 papers, initially, there were only different two papers which distinguished either the academia into either sociology or anthropology. So other 8 papers were the same. So we used to even at that in the time in my time also, after more than 20 years, I also studied in the joint department of sociology and anthropology. So I also studied some sociological theory as well in the joint department. So there were joint faculties. We were also taught by the sociologists as well, and also anthropologists taught to the sociology students. Uh, and we used to have and anthropology department used to organize periodic conferences, seminars, workshops on different contemporary and pertinent issues, and some of the in some of the conferences there were they held international conferences as well, and so scholars from not only from the west, I guess some scholars from India also contributed, and I can remember that in few of the conferences uh, some Indian sociologist, I just forgot his name. He was that professor was uh, chairperson of this Indian Sociological Association. He was keynote speaker in 2009 or sometime, I think. So we used to have different kind of conferences, workshops, and but even then there was no regional dialogue. I mean, I will come up with this issue also later on. We used to have very limited exchange of knowledge between the people and scholars from our own region. Uh, Only in this period, in that is after 1981, after the establishment of Central Department of Sociology Anthropology, only few colleges and research centers also began to produce their own journal as well. Central Department used to regularly produce one journal, though the name of the journal was occasional paper. It was so it was produced occasionally in some years, but there some other colleges also began to produce their own journal, and we had annual system of academic programs till 2014 13, and only in 2014 semester based program were introduced in anthropology departments, and other social science departments at Tribhuvan University. So till 2015, we have joint Department of Sociology and Anthropology in some of the, not only at the central department, but also in other parts of the other colleges, as I mentioned. In out of these 1,068 colleges, few colleges used to run sociology anthropology department for their master's program. So only in 2016 we had separate anthropology department. Now we have anthropology department. So now I began my journey as a student and also as a faculty at the joint department, joint sociology anthropology department. Now I'm at the independent anthropology department at Tribhuvan University. So this uh, independent department of anthropology, though our sociological colleagues used to say that they were dominated by anthropologists, though the size of anthropologists were less in number, even the size of the students and the faculty, but they always used to say that anthropologists are the dominant. But somehow, at the popular level, many people used to think that anthropology is part of the sociology. That was irony. So we were in identity crisis actually during the joint department era. So only after 2016 onwards that, for example, whenever there is a vacancy called by the government services, we have public service commission like IAS in India. So our public service commission used to open up the position for sociologist. The position was called sociologist, though anthropologist also can apply. So those were the domination of sociology during that time. So this kind of popular level domination and other shortcomings have been fading out nowadays because of having independent department. So now we have different uh, specialized paper in anthropology. So our students pursue anthropology only with anthropological papers. Uh, and also this has opened up research into new terrain of areas. And so anthropology students are exploring new areas of anthropological research. So currently we have anthropology programs. Even now at +2 level, there is no anthropology paper formally, but the paper contains more than 50% of the content is anthropological. We can see there, but still that paper is called sociology. So at +2 level now, nobody can have anthropology major. They cannot choose still. So, however, it began in 1999 at +2 level after 18 years of having master's level academic training in anthropology. So in bachelor's level from 1985 onwards, we have anthropology programs. So also in the name of sociology. So students majoring sociology in bachelor's level actually used to study anthropology. So now we have separate anthropology papers currently after the separation, after the having independent departments. And from 1981 onwards, we have master's program. And we began to have MPhil program in anthropology very recently, only in 2012. Our MPhil program in anthropology lasts for 1.5 years. So till now, currently we are running 8th batch of MPhil anthropology students. And we also have PhD program in anthropology. So like myself, many anthropologists who are in academia and other field, they have also pursued their PhD in Nepal, from Tribhuvan University as well. So in our PhD program, if the person is quick enough, is well equipped with resources and time, he or she can pursue his PhD shortly, even within 3 years. But usually it lasts from 5 to 6 years. So most of the, if you look at the statistics, our PhD graduates are completing their PhD in 5 to 6 years, because most of the PhD candidates, they are working as faculty in Tribhuvan University and other colleges, and or working with different developmental organizations. So uh, recently, few other universities, now we have 9 universities in Nepal, and I think two other universities have also begun to have their master's program in anthropology and sociology, and they are still following our old tradition of having joint department. They still have joint sociology anthropology program in their MA and MPhil programs. So, sometimes we also contribute to develop syllabus for them, but for the joint departments. So this is the general teaching environment of development of historical development of anthropology. So if we look, then my third part of my presentation is about the present scenario of teaching and research in Nepal. While looking at the present scenario, we can see that scope of anthropology has widely expanded in Nepalese context. It's not only in academia, but also in civil service and other. One of the prominent areas for scholars and educated people to have work employment opportunity in Nepal is developmental sector. And so most of the developmental organization, they look for basically anthropology and sociology graduates as their employee. So because of our focus on societal concern and our sensitivity to culture and social context of different targeted developmental groups, so our students are hired mostly by this developmental organization. So, and if they have to conduct any kind of research, these developmental organizations, including the government ones, they have to conduct evaluation research. They preferably look for anthropologists and sociologists. So, the see at present context, the situation of anthropology is considered as, you can consider it as the golden era after 1990, because of the flourishing developmental industry. And because of this, number of native anthropologists are also increasing, and as well as diversification of anthropological research are increasing. So unlike conventional areas of family, marriage, kinship, and resource population, social structure, so anthropologists are entering into new areas. For instance, remittance and international migration, different aspects of medical anthropology, and urban anthropology, and disaster anthropology, because of 2015 earthquake and also this pandemic. Many anthropologists are uh, the, many opportunities are opened up for anthropologists to conduct research in these areas also. So and some anthropologists are also conducting research, though very few, in the areas of business and economy as well. So it is one of the emerging area, and native anthropologists are contributing them in these different areas. Uh, However, if we look at the critically see the present scenario of anthropological research in Nepal, we can see that among the four fields of anthropology, there is still domination of socio-cultural anthropology. So if you look at the content of our MA, MPhil, and PhD courses as well, there is wider domination. But recently we have added one paper in our MA program in linguistic anthropology. There used to be one archaeology paper from the beginning, but biological physical anthropology is almost neglected at all. So uh, And if you look at the research aspect, even in the if you see that even in the teaching arena, these are the neglected. So we can guess that research is also quite neglected in these three areas of anthropological domain. So though we can see that there is flourishment of anthropology in sociocultural anthropology, the flourishment is means flourishment in sociocultural anthropology, not in these other three areas of anthropology. So still we have to work, come up with some solid programs to uplift the holistic development of anthropology. We can see expansion of teaching not only in Tribhuvan University but also in other universities. So and moreover, one of the remarkable thing is uh, one can observe is that now anthropology in the sometimes in the name of as anthropology or sometimes even as sociology or sometimes with different names, different titles and headings, anthropology has begun expanded to other non-anthropology departments as well. So there is and student has to study anthropology in medicine. If they are pursuing MBBS in different name, they have to study anthropology, one paper or two papers. If they are pursuing public health, nursing, especially more nursing, public health, and medicine, there is anthropology. Also in agriculture, they have to study anthropology. Also in engineering, they have to study anthropology. In forestry, management, rural development, in the name of different either anthropology or with different headings, there are anthropology papers. So since we know that these papers, these disciplines are for the people, so we have been somehow able to convince the people beyond anthropology that there is need of anthropology in other areas also to make the service people friendly, culture friendly. So I think this is one of the remarkable achievement of current day anthropology in Nepal. So this somehow this is the brighter side of the anthropology till now. So now I would like to take you towards the shortcomings, pitfalls about the anthropology. Somehow, some of the issues have already been pointed out. But if you look at still, so I haven't raised some of the issues, but in considering the number of students and faculties and departments expansion and the areas of anthropological research, still we do not have world class we can regard as world class anthropology journal yet. Probably it's because of this that uh, native anthropologists, especially the Nepalese anthropologists, have not come up in the global scene as I think they deserve. We can see, and we have also, I think, all of you or some of you have experienced that as non-native speaker, we don't have easy access to publish our articles in so-called peer-reviewed international journals, especially those published from USA, UK, or other parts of the West, whether they are in Southeast from the East Asia or Southeast Asia also. So uh, inability to publish in international journal and also not having our own journal as a kind of uh, circumcision. It has circumscribed our presence, and I think this is one of the urgent area, urgent need. And I've I think it is, and I would like to move towards next problem. I think it is not only of Nepal or non-native English speaker. I think it is the problem of all the non-native, all the languages other than English or the dominant world languages. that we have gone through different literature which acknowledge that Western scholars, Western philosophers, before the emergence of anthropology also, their contribution has been regarded in the name of Enlightenment era or whatever as having anthropological significance. But I think we South Asians, not only I think it is not only the problem of Nepal, the problem of whole Asia and South Asia especially, that we are very much hesitant, and I think we are still less liberal to acknowledge about the knowledge production made by our forefathers, our philosophers, our thinkers, our knowledge producers, who have made contribution in Sanskrit and other regional languages. In case of Nepal, it is Nepali, Sanskrit, Newari, and other languages. And in case of India, in Hindi and other different local languages. I think so. We have not been open up to acknowledge what has been written in. We have to be reminded by the Westerners writing in English that, oh, one of your that your of your scholars, that of your researcher has made contribution in anthropology, in ethnography, in people, culture, whatever. So I think we are lacking. So somehow it has to come up in this post 1990 era, in this 21st century, that we have to acknowledge. Besides being open up to see what has to accept the contribution from the scholars from all over the world, we also have to acknowledge what has been produced here, and we have forgotten, or at least we're not forgotten. We know about their existence, which have been overlooked for centuries, not if not decades. And if you look at the general anthropology in Nepal, one can see or at least blame that Nepalese anthropology is inclined towards political left. Probably anthropologists all over the world are a bit critical towards the existing structure. So that could be one of our common feature. But if you look at the theoretical content, research, or papers published in the journal, and you can see that some kind of Marxist, socialist, and critical theoretical domination is prevalent there. So that might have costed to the uh, with less weightage to symbolic, interpretive, and other anthropological tradition. So we have to confess this. And for a long time, there is another pitfalls about, especially during the era of when foreigners were the anthropologists doing research in Nepal, especially about they were more focused on Middle Hills and Himalayan region. It's because of their culture also. So somehow we have to acknowledge that, because Hindus, especially the upper caste Hindus, regarded them as mlechya, that is uh, the liquid drinker class. So they were not welcomed by the upper caste Hindus, caste groups. So they chose to conduct research and stay with other group of people whom liquor drinking was common in practice. So that could be one of the reason, or there is another political economic reason as well, because most of the initial and foreign anthropologists working in Nepal were the Britishers. They were funded by the British government and were providing some kind of service to British government. So they were looking for, they wanted to know more about the martial groups, martial, what they have labeled as martial or warrior groups. So they wanted to know more about some ethnic groups. So their focus was more on about these groups, like I already mentioned, Grai, Limbu, Gurung, Magar, which are the dominant groups in Gurkha military also, even present now, up to now. So, uh, and another most important thing, and one of the prominent Harvard graduated anthropologist, Dr. Saubhagya Shah, unfortunately, is no more with us. Diminished, deceased at very young age when he was associate professor at anthropology in our department. So he has blamed the Western scholars that they were more inclined to conduct research among the fragmented group of people, among one particular group of people out of several group of people residing in one locality. If you look at, I'm not sure about the social composition of group of people in other parts of South Asia, even other parts of South Asia. If you look at Nepalese residential people pattern, you can find that there are few Dalits, there are few upper caste groups, and some other ethnic groups of people residing in one cluster, one geographical area. What in political one political unit or whatever, like your gram panchayat in India, or what we have got, uh, nagarpalika, that is rural municipality or municipality, nagarpalika or gaon palika. So if you look at the people composition of the people, we have mixed settlement of people, but these foreign scholars, they began to study only one out of the, let's say, out of 20 group of people residing in the same territory. So that has provided a kind of fragmented view that has contributed to produce fragmented view of the society culture, and somehow they were looking for friction rather than the harmony among the different groups of people, especially the British and other Western scholars. So they have come up with those different kind of monographs and ethnographic outcomes. So rather than focusing on caste, community as a whole, they were focusing on only selected one or few ethnic groups and the relationship between them. So that has, for him, for Saubhagya Shah, distorted the anthropological growth in Nepal. And there is another point, we can see that there is severe lack of independent funding agency. We have recently University Grant Commission of Nepal. It provides support to not only in social science and anthropology, but all the disciplines, science, medicine, general science, physical, natural science, engineering, medicine, and also social science, including anthropology. So we don't have any distinct funding mechanism like probably some of you have social science research council in your respective country. So we don't have that kind of funding agency yet. This has circumscribed the independent anthropological knowledge production in Nepal. And this has confined anthropological development in particular area because funding for anthropological research still comes mostly from non-governmental organization and from the local NGOs or international organization or UN agencies working in Nepal in different developmental sector. So they are not. We can guess that they are not producing. They are not. They will not contribute for the scholarly anthropological contribution. They will look for some applied significance in those areas. Not only this, they wanted to project, they want to provide funding only in the areas where they want to focus. And as we are familiar with the James Ferguson's literature, they want to produce particular project, particular representation of Nepalese society and culture. and their funding is diverted towards that. So unless there is independent funding agency, there is less possibility of having independent anthropological knowledge in Nepal. So this has circumscribed certain uh, areas of anthropology, and probably this is one of the fundamental reason why four field of anthropology has not come up at par, or the rest of the three field of anthropology, along with social and cultural anthropology, because social and cultural anthropology and especially developmental area is funded by these institutions, so they don't provide funding for archaeological or biological physical aspects. So yet we have to come out of developmentalist approach. So one of the critical scholar, Professor Diliram Dahal, and two others, Upreti and Pokhrel, they think that anthropological research and knowledge production has expanded in Nepal widely, but still it is at the level of description. So they think it has yet to come up with analytical views, and native anthropological in native theories and methods have yet to come up, because still we are consuming the theories and methods produced in the West or the Westerners in Nepal. So we can, based on this, we can say that still uh, we have yet to develop capability to grasp and grapple the issues pertinent to local national context in Nepal. So anthropology has yet to come up for that, and probably this is the challenge everywhere, that we have uh, to make our discipline relevant. We have to go along with we have to be able to address and capture the emerging issues as contemporary issues in our research area also. So if you look at the shortcomings in teaching in briefly within in few minutes, so still domination of literature by the foreign scholars, especially foreigners means Westerners, in our curricula. So though we have some articles, very few articles written by Nepalese scholars, but yet adequately we have to Nepalize the courses. So that means each courses probably needs some sort of literature about Nepal, and hopefully also from by the Nepalese scholars. So this is still lacking in the area of teaching. And the widely lacking thing is regional exchange, and South Asian literature is widely lacking. We have some literature from India, but we have almost non-literature. I think there are only one or two literature from uh, Sri Lanka. So I don't see that other literature from other part of the world, South Asia, in our curricula. So it's quite lacking, and probably this is through this kind of forum we can uh, repeatedly question this issue, raise this issue, and contribute from our respective position. For instance, while I'm developing research, if you have some medical anthropological resources, I'm developing medical anthropological syllabus for our MA, MPhil, and PhD students. So I can incorporate them in our syllabus. I'm also developing syllabus in research methodology, ethnographic methods. So I can incorporate them. So if we can have such kind of exchanges. I think we have to begin. It's not only the problem, there is also solution. So until now, some of the researchers, especially those trained in Western universities, they think that our curriculum is less practicum based still. Especially we teach research methods in the classroom. In addition to sending students to field, we do practice sending them, but they think still it is lacking. So we still have to increase that. And I have found that, yeah, I also raised this issue even among the faculty members and subject committee members in Tribhuvan University and in our department as well, that relatively some of our courses, papers are relatively lengthy. Some of our colleagues think that they can feed everything in a single paper or in few papers. So I don't agree with them. I think we have to provide reasonable length of paper. We can through a single paper. I think we can simply raise interest in that area, and if the student is really interested to carry forward to produce knowledge in that particular area, then she or he will keep on going, I think. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Suman and everyone.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank
Ratna, now
yes.
you can
Yeah.
proceed
Thank
now.
you.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Kapil Dahal, sir. Your expertise and subsequent excellent deliberation gave us lots of insight on various historical aspects of anthropology in Nepal. Now, the session is open for discussion. If any one of you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and directly speak with our resource person.
Any question from audience?
Good afternoon. Myself,
Good
Dr.
afternoon.
Suchmita Shain Chaudhary from Minalini Datta Mahavidyapit. I was listening to your lecture and it was very interesting. I was just following one literature that is on caste, ethnic, and regional identity, which was published in 2006. And here I found the division of ethnic groups, which is found in Nepal. I was surprised to see that there are caste people. There are, I think, Janajatis or the Adivashis, which are commonly common term for the indigenous people in Nepal. It has been divided into two parts. One is for the Newar people, and other is the Janajati, who are again divided into two subdivisions. One is hill people, and another part is those who are living in Tarai. So I want to know more about these divisions. Why Newar people are kept separately? Are they indigenous people or are they caste people? What is their status? And another interesting thing which is coming to my mind, one group I have found is called Modeshio. If I am not wrongly spelling it, Modeshio. Who are this Modeshio? Actually, when in my childhood days, when I used to live in the northern part of West Bengal, I found some people who used to be called Modeshio, and later I got to know that this Modeshio means Modhodeshio. I mean, those people who are coming from the middle part of India. Is the same connotation is applicable for the Modeshios in Nepal? So these are some of the queries that was coming to my mind. Could you please throw some light?
Thank you, Dr. Susmita. You have pointed out really interesting queries uh, in Nepalese, in current Nepalese political, uh, ethnic political context. Uh, yes, as I also try to hint it out, there is complex division of caste ethnicity in Nepal. So caste is translated literally in Nepali as jat, and ethnic groups are translated as janajati, jat and janajati. So these are two different terminologies labeled. So while considering the Newar, whether they are janajati or caste group, it's very interesting. And if that is why I am saying that Nepalese anthropology and somehow Nepalese academia and scholarship is a bit influenced, or some of the critical scholars would say that distorted by Western scholars. If you look at the definition of Janajati, that is ethnic group in Nepal, they have been defined as non-Hindu groups. So if you look at the composition of Newar, there are Buddhist Newars and there are Hindu Newars. So Newar themselves consider, most of the Newar themselves who are not in politics, ethnopolitics, they think that they are not Janajati, they are not ethnic groups, they are caste groups. Because if you look at the caste system within Newars, they have 64 caste division. They are so rich in cultural heritage, and there is hierarchy and so much diversity. They are the urban people. Most of the urban, almost every urban regional urban center in Nepal is mostly occupied by Newars. We are the migrants in Kathmandu and other urban areas. They are the ones in all the urban areas. So they don't want to be labeled as Janajati, but some Janjati leaders and including Newars Janjati leaders, ethnic leaders, they wanted to them to have to be labeled as Janajati, ethnic groups, because they are in the urban areas. That means they are in the places where their voices can be heard. If they have to do any kind of protest in the same to raise voices, it has to be in the urban centers. It has to be in Kathmandu and other urban centers. So if you look at the population size of composition of Kathmandu, I think still Newar are more than 60% in Kathmandu Valley. So ethnic leaders, they need Newars within ethnic groups, but common Newars, they don't want to be there. So there is this dispute, but still officially they are Janjati now. And towards this Madesi, what you pronounce is a bit different, probably your Bengali tone. We call Madesi or Mades, and there is this is one of the usually debated topic in Nepal. And recently, if you are familiar with Nepalese politics, ethnopolitics, we have 7 provinces, federal provinces in Nepal, very recently established, set up in 2000. It's called, I think it was named last week as Madhes. Janakpur Dham and the place where Janaki temple and the Sita's motherland belongs to this area. So what is the meaning of Madhes is there is dispute. I think some of etymologically they link it with Madhya Desh, the middle place, the middle country. So there is dispute whether Madhes is real indigenous terminology coined in Nepal or it is coming out from India or something. But despite that, it got the official status as a name of the province number 2 in Nepal. Now, out of 77 districts, 8 districts belonging to province 2 are part of this Madhes province. So this is the area where people used to, in which people used to call Torai earlier. This is the same area, same people, same region. So in some literature you can find that simultaneously, interchangeably. Some people would call it Tarai or some people would call it Madhes. Probably the scenario will be different now onwards because of this name of this province too, as a Madhes. So Tarai and Madhes are similar, though they have different political connotation. That is, Tarai denotes a kind of geographical location,
Right.
but Madhes denotes some ethnopolitical connotation. That's the difference.
Thanks, Dr. Kapil. Now, in this context, may request Professor Sheikh Rahim Mondal, you have raised your hand. Do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, thank you, Suman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really, first of all, I must congratulate you people for organizing this very important today's parallels they called webinar. on anthropology in Asia. Initially, my interest was on that. Later on, I came to know that today it is basically the focal theme is of Nepal. Very interesting for me in the sense that I always happened to be in the North Bengal University, where in 3 departments we have anthropology teachers and anthropology researchers. In sociology, anthropology joint department as like as Kapil, another one is anthropology new department, and another one Himalayan studies. And Himalayan studies, we have a program on South Asian anthropology or Himalayan anthropology. So in that context, this lecture, Kapilji's lecture is very much beneficial for me also. I think Kapilji quite aware about my Center of Himalayan Studies, where we are many anthropology teachers are also there, and we have a good linkage with this anthropologist of Nepal. So I have 3. It is not the question. I have not courage to do that. I appreciate Kapilji for very vivid descriptions of the growth and development of anthropology in Nepal, almost very nearer to, almost similar to our Indians, but ours is 100 years old, and this is still going to be 50 years very soon. First thing is this: we all Indian anthropologists must know the first professor of anthropology of India. Everybody knows his name, Professor K.P. Chattopadhyay. He was the first professor in anthropology of South Asia. He went to Nepal after coming back from Cambridge for his PhD to work among the Newars. Even most of the Indians do not know that. As you said rightly, he was leftist in mind, and for his political inclination towards left, in other way, he was not a British, rather the anti-British or a nationalist. He was not allowed to submit his thesis. And we all Indian must know, Kapilji rightly pointed out that before 50s, it was not open to scholars of outside Nepal or the British. It was not open to all. So it is one reference point that first anthropologist of India, who is the founder of the, once again, one of the great name in Indian anthropology, who had his PhD work unable to complete, it was on Nepal. It was among the Newars. Second part, Kapilji, in India, anthropology is basically a holistic anthropology, physical anthropology, social cultural anthropology. You have rightly pointed out British and American impact, social cultural anthropology. And third one is your Paleolithic, I mean to say the paleoanthropology or prehistoric archaeology. I am quite familiar with the sociology and anthropology of Nepal, as it was almost same into my department. It was in most of the Indian universities, there were the joint departments once upon a time. But what about the status of physical anthropology and prehistoric archaeology within the fold of anthropology in Nepal? I think I have seen Professor Joshi here is in this particular webinar, and Joshi is one of the leading, rather the founding member of the medical anthropology in India. So I think Joshi will maybe certainly comment. You have your expertise also on the medical anthropology. So I think these two we need to know, as because Indian anthropology has an impact in South Asian anthropology. We cannot ignore that. Similarly, South Asian anthropology of Nepal also made some impacts in India. I'm just coming to that point. Another important, many of the Nepali scholars came to my university for having their PhDs, either in sociology or in anthropology. Even quite often thesis I am receiving for review. Even the last week also I sent one report. Very interesting kind of thing, almost similar to us. Very new trends in anthropological research. I have just examined one thesis on Dalits of Nepal, very recently. Another, I also examined one thesis on indigenous knowledge, folk medicine, your medical anthropology kind of things. Professor Gartola, I think you know him. Gartola did a very excellent thesis on ethnomedicines of Nepal. It was a 2-volume thesis submitted to our university. Basically, man of botany, later had his PhD in anthropology, later had his MSc in anthropology from foreign university, and came to our university for further research. And many more anthropologists did their PhDs in our university and also in many other universities in India. But I want to know actually What are the recent trends of anthropological research? As because I have seen from your review and from the review of Indian anthropology, basically anthropology focused towards our India we call tribe, you call Janjati, our focus on caste you call Jati. Okay. Beyond that, what are the new areas of research? Lot of diasporas are also residing in, even the Indian diaspora is also residing in Nepal. Among them, the most important is the Maori community. They are basically dominant business communities of Nepal, very closer to my university campus even. Quite often we also cut across the border to go for shopping. So their actual market is controlled by Marwari community. Almost generation after generation, they are staying settled. And do you call them as a diaspora? This is my question. Now, just few minutes before, my young colleague raised a very fundamental question. Modeshis. Especially our anthropological problem, we are not much giving importance to theories. That is a major problem. Study of identity is basically issue now. Modest has a various meanings in various contexts. In North Bengal, you see so-called Bhadralok categories, so the Bengalis. They call Modeshis, Modeshias, they call not Modesis, Modeshias, basically to mean the tea garden laborers. Not the tea garden laborers of Nepal, which is the hills. The plain tea garden laborers are basically coming from central region of India, what exactly geographically meaning is same, Madhya but it has turned to a new identity, Madhya is Modesia. It means the tribal laborers. So you see, similarly in your Terai region, very closer to my university, is also in the Terai region. It is Indian Terai. Your Nepal Terai is basically also large number of dominations of the Indian communities, including Rajbangshis, Santals, lot of other tribal communities. They are also called Modesis there. So is there any other identity they have created within the Nepalese social structure? This is a very interesting thing, as because same people in different contexts has different names, have different identities. It is a very great thing. Suppose the Santal, huge number of Santal communities residing in the Terai region, long generation after generation. So what actually happened? How you anthropologists did them? Another important thing is this: most of the hill communities of Nepal who migrated to Indian side, either in this so-called Uttarakhand region or in this part of North Bengal region or in Sikkim, they have a gradual tendency to initially from tribe to caste, what we call Srinivasa's terminology Sanskritization, or a Brahminization process, or a Hinduization process. But nowadays, most of them are claiming the, in our India, we have a scheduled tribe. It is not the tribe, we are more concerned with the scheduled tribe. They're going towards opting for the scheduled tribe from caste, initially OBCs, then after 5 years it is a caste, SCs. Now once again turning to the scheduled tribe dimensions. So what we call re-tribalization process. Initially they all are the category of ethnic categories or tribes. Move towards the caste fold, once again coming back to the tribal fold, the cycle, just the reverse cycle. Is this same process going on in Nepal? Here there is an issue. Here is the issue is constitutional benefits, protective discrimination. Obviously, what we call inclusive perspective. Whether the same thing happening in your Nepal? There are many other things. I'm not going in detail. There are many other people to speak. And my last question is not the questions to you. What about your interaction? Because one important thing what we have noticed, and we should be very careful now, many of the foreign scholars, particularly British and American, coming to Nepal in the name of research. As because getting visa is very easier to get entry to the Nepal. But getting visa to India is not a matter of so easy thing. But what I have noticed since I was the director of the Center of Human Studies, quite often I used to receive calls from the administration, even from the police, and even from some of my senior colleagues of anthropology from Delhi, that sir, some of the people they are coming to me, approaching that we want to go to these places because their main concern is traditional British anthropology to study tribes. And their main focus was on, I must say, the lepchas. Once I told them why you see the lepchas are the 100 years before the lepchas, the today's lepchas the same. But why you people are focusing on lepchas? So the issue is going on and on. Later on, a little bit checked. Entry to Nepal, Nepal border is open, coming to India in the name of research, and sometimes we face some trouble, as because we are the academicians. So this thing is going on and on. Now it is somehow or other it is once we are under very great trouble. So what actually happened? As because we are scared about the foreign anthropologists. They made tribe more a tribe. So this thing is going on. That their mindset is the construction of others, quote and unquote study of others. This study of other mindset actually damages the anthropology. I am very boldly to say that. Study of others. We never think that we should be again study ours. So one kind of neo-colonialism. It is going on and on. It is also in India. I think it is also in Nepal. What is your view?
Thank you, Professor Mondol. I think before we go, going to the Kapil is something somewhere gone. I think so. Anyway, let the Kapil come.
I think some problem is there.
No. Kapil, can you
No, I'm
give
back.
your comments in brief? Yes, you can speak. You can speak.
You are visible, no problem. You are visible.
You are visible, Kapil.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
If you want to put any answer in brief, you can do. You can do.
I have no need of answer. I am just. It is not a question. Rather, my observation.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Rohim. It was really nice to have your such elaborated comments. As you said that you are not in a position to question, and I also acknowledge that most of the points you have raised, I agree with them, and I don't need to answer some of them. And I found that few queries you have specifically pointed out, and I think they needs further elaboration, such as you have mentioned about Madhesi people, and yes, with I also, as I already mentioned with Dr. Susmita's query, that now I think the labeling of terminology Madhesi in Nepal is little bit different than in India. While listening to you, in Nepal, Madhesi includes broadly to every caste and ethnic groups residing in what conventionally called as Tarai of Nepal, the south part of Nepal,
Good.
from east
Yeah,
to
this is the
west.
main difference. Yeah.
From east to west. It's not only for Tarai Janjati, for Tarai ethnic or tribal groups, as we very rarely use tribal groups in Nepal. So the terminology, we use ethnic groups here. So it includes every category of people. And especially if you look at politically, the Madhesi, it connotes to the actually to the high caste people from Tarai. That's very interesting in comparison to what you just referred in the situation of Nepal. And as the connotation of the terminology also differs in different parts of Nepal, somehow up to few years ago, Madhesi, and especially as you also mentioned Madhesia, especially the Newars residing in Kathmandu Valley, they used to use this terminology as a derogative way to the people from Tarai. Madhesia was not a good terminology. It was not desired terminology. Madhesi is okay, it's fine, it's an adjective. The people residing in Madhes, but Madhesia is a bit different. and widely they also called Modise. This is also another derogatory terminology. If you say Madesi, it's fine, it's welcoming word, and Modise is derogatory word. So while using this term, we have to be careful in case of Nepal. So and I absolutely agree with you that the same terminology has different kind of connotation and meaning in different among different group of people. That's very interesting for us as anthropologists. And there is another, you mentioned about this Hinduization and de-Hinduization process in the case of India because of newly formed constitution and the constitutional provision. I think it is the same case with Nepal because of the political change in 2014 in of our recent uh, federal constitution. There is some provision of reservation for different caste, ethnic groups, and marginal groups, which are called Adivasi, as in case as in your case, and it is a bit. I think the terminology Adivasi is quite problematic because you label some people of the country as Adivasi as the real inhabitant of the original inhabitant of the land, and others are labeled as the connotation of that means they are not the original inhabitant. So that has quite uh, strong political message to the other people who are not uh, regarded as Adivasi. So there is some confusion and there is always there is critique about this terminology in Nepal. But however, because of this political change, all the Janajatis are considered as Adivasi, have been somehow with the interest and influence of West, especially some Europeans, such as Norwegian, Swedish, Britisher, and some Americans. It was written in Nepal as that all the Janjati are labeled as Adivasi, and all the caste groups are not considered as Adivasi. So there is some problem even in our constitution and also in political connotation of this. So what I'm trying to I agree with you is that there was this process of Hinduization, and all the Janjatis somehow they try to link themselves with upper caste Hindu groups. But later on, with this political change, especially in 1990, and also because of new constitution of Nepal, there is some political privileges and space provided some tribal groups and some ethnic groups, marginal ethnic groups. So this is what now people do not want to associate themselves as ethnic groups, so as caste groups. So, and if you look at the definition of Janajati in Nepalese context, and I think this is the problem, it starts with this one, that it considers all the Janjati are considered as non-Hindus. Even though some of the Janjatis like even Rai, Limbu, Guru, Magar, they have been following Hinduism from generations, but officially they are not Hindus. So there is problem. And because of this, at least in political arena, so they do not they want to, there is this
Yacho.
de-Hinduization.
Chef.
And about this doing research and getting access easy or not easy in Nepal, you are right that I know few British anthropologists who tried initially to pursue their research in India, but because of their inability to get ethical clearance, then they applied in Nepal. They came to Nepal for their medical anthropological research. I know few of them personally. So getting research visa and getting access to uh, most of the I'm saying most because if you know about the Himalayan region of Nepal, Dolpa and Mustang, two different Himalayan districts are restricted for foreigners. but other parts of the country are not restricted. So anyone can go everywhere with a research visa, and very much easy, and it's very cheap. With few $100 you can get research visa, and nobody asks about what kind of research you did, you pursued. As a member of faculty member of Tribhuvan University, I have become so-called advisor or mentor of some of these international researchers who never appear after getting their visa. They don't need to submit anything to us. If they are generous enough, or if they are politically correct enough to get another second research visa, only then they appear. They provide research reports. Otherwise, they don't provide research reports. Our university doesn't look for that, and none of the government agency look for that. So it's very much easy. Anyone can go everywhere, anywhere. If you have permission in, let's say, district number 1 among the out of the 77 district, if you are saying that you are doing research in district number 1, then you can go to district number 56 or district number 77 or wherever you want. There will be no one. Your skin and your language will be the passport and visa to everywhere. That will make you all the time in privileged position. Whether you
Thank you,
spend
Kapil. Thank you, Kapil. Before going to the further discussion, may I request Professor Joshi to put some comments on this today's program. Professor Joshi.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I really enjoyed a very graphic description given by Dr. Kapil. And in fact, I would say that the history of anthropology in Nepal and history of anthropology in India, they almost go parallel. The only difference is of scale. And, like India, there are so many and people that they are doing anthropology. And therefore, we are able to perhaps work in the various areas of anthropology, including prehistoric archaeology as well as biological anthropology, which, of course, is not. I see that weakness in Nepal anthropology. Now, I'm really, like if I look at the growth of anthropology, I'm more concerned with growth of Nepalese doing anthropology. That is more important for me as an Indian. And I think it is now 50 years old practice that we are having in Nepal, which is very, very commendable. And if you compare it to India, and we have got exactly 100 years of anthropology now, teaching anthropology in India that we are having. Well, I remember going to Nepal just in the formative years in 1985, and meeting people like Dahal and Drona Rajori and Dor Bahadur Bishta, Gurung. All these people were there at that time. It was a very exciting time. And I think especially meeting Dor Bahadur Bishta who I think can be rightly called as father of Nepal anthropology. I don't know whether Kapilji will agree with me or not, but I definitely would like to call, because it was a very, very, I think, very intense discussions that I have on Nepal, especially, I think he had written a book on people and culture of Nepal, something like that. So that is what I think from that time onwards, I see there a lot of progress which has been made. But what I see lacking is that in spite of the fact that many of the Nepal anthropologists have good relation with India, there has been, I think, lack of close exchange of ideas, of researches between India and Nepal. And I think this is something what was being, I think, addressed by Dr. Kapil as well. I think that is something, because, you're talking about Madhesis here, like in India, we have got term in our part of Himalayas, we have this dichotomy, Pahadi and Desi. So we differentiate between people from the plains and people from the hills. People from the hills would call others, it is like the category of the other. And I think Madhesi must have come from the word Desh, which actually, if translate, it is a Sanskrit word or Hindi word. If translate Desh, like Pardesi, you have a word called Pardesi. Similarly, you have a word called Desi. And this Desi is something similar to, if you're looking into, like Indian Pahadi context, something like Diku word, which is being used by the Santals and, Orans for outsiders. They use the word called Diku. So it is, you are very right that this word also connotes some kind of a negative. There are negative connotations as well, because they consider them to be people who are, I think, exploiting or cheating the innocent hill people, the Pahadi people. That kind of a dichotomy was there as far as the Indian context is concerned. But that apart, I'm very glad to know that you talked about medical anthropology that Nepal is pursuing. But I'm more intrigued, and I'm really very happy to learn that you're also working on disasters. That's something which is very, very good. And I think Nepal disaster that we had, there is a lot of scope. I always believe that disaster is a multidisciplinary subject, and there is always scope for anthropological, intervention. I myself done some research on disaster, and I have students who are quite, I think, intensively working in this area. And this is a very exciting area, apart from, of course, anthropology or climate change, anthropology, disaster. These are two areas which have great relevance for not only for Nepal, but also they have great relevance for India. I'm very glad to share in this area, Bangladesh has done really wonderful work. Bangladesh has come out with very, very important, I think, insight in these areas. And I think India and Nepal both have to learn from Bangladesh as well as anthropology of disaster is concerned. But it was a pleasure listening to you, Dr. Kapil. And I'm very glad that you, in a very short while, you tried to encapsulate the whole history of Nepal, anthropology of Nepal, very beautifully. So congratulations to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Joshi. Now, Dr. Ratna, may I proceed further?
Sumon,
Yes, Professor Mondal, yes.
one more thing. What
Please.
Professor Joshi rightly pointed out, Professor Darbahadur Bista, he has a very famous book, Peoples of Nepal. And most that you see in our India, we have Peoples of India written by usually a foreigner, but in Nepal, Peoples of Nepal written by a Nepalese scholar. What Professor Joshi rightly pointed out. And of course, we here in India, we consider him as the father of anthropology of Nepal. And second thing, I think Pushpalata Tikka is here, no? You convey my best wishes to her. He happened to be my own student. So I am happy to see her in this platform as an organizing committee member. So once again, Sumam, thank you also, and thank you to Kapilji and my all colleagues, including Professor Joshi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
so
much.
much, sir, for joining us.
Yes. Ratna, now,
I think we should, it looks like we have to cover all the questions. We don't have.
Yes, definitely. Now, this is my time to discuss,
Right.
make some points, because as a coordinator of this international lecture series of history of development of anthropology as a discipline in Asia. So initially, our thought was to build one platform where we can exchange this kind of knowledge, this kind of knowledge. And today, after listening the lecture of Kapil, Kapil has given very, very passionate lecture regarding the history of development anthropology. Because few at the beginning of this COVID-19 situation, we formed one group in South Asia, and where Kapil also joined our group too. And this is our pleasure to listen to Kapil, Dr. Kapil Dahal. He's rightly pointed out all these things. Now, as per the suggestion of the Kapil to publish one book by incorporating all the lectures, whatever we have done today is 11th of the lecture. Yes, we have in our plan, we have in our mind to publish one book in the form of the history of development of anthropology in Asian context. And we are trying to incorporate India and another 2 to 3 countries. So after that, we will finalize it and we will publish this book. Yes, your kind support is also will also very important for us, Dr. Kapil. And yes, we have all the YouTube link for this particular lectures, and we are very surprising to listen that different country have different traditions. No, in 11 lectures, Kapil, Nepal. So first lecture given by the Professor Carlos from Philippines, and Professor Cheng from China. Now, the thing is that everyone have his
এগুলো
own
পার্টি
history.
জানে
Yes, colonizations, colonial effects was there. Now, I know that Kapil rightly said that we have very little understanding of the history of anthropology in Southeast Asian and Asian countries, and that is why we build this platform to exchange our knowledge in between the countries. So, from this platform, we learned that the father of Indonesian anthropology is known as Professor Kunir Amirat. So this is our learning. This is our learning process, not only us, but also our students to expand the horizons.
কি হলো
Professor Yunita from Indonesia, she wished to adopt the ethnographic understanding of the India into their syllabus. So that is our success to incorporate all these countries together. So another things I would like to highlight that the name of Professor Hyman-Drob. So as Kapil said that Professor Hyman-Drob has written the different descriptions of the people of Nepal also. Simultaneously, I have gone through one text regarding the Professor Hyman-Drob work. That Professor Hyman-Drob not only work in Arunachal Pradesh and also the Nagas of Nagaland. He has also done some work in Philippines also, in Luzon areas. So, and what he said in a particular text that he said that if they will drop by helicopter in a northern part of the Philippines, then there is no question of differences between the hills of Nagas and the hills of northern Philippines. So that is some similarities. What Professor Hyman-Drob realized. So that is the important for our understanding to incorporate all these countries, because these countries has rich material of anthropology, and we will exchange our knowledge in the coming time. So this is the beginning of our journey, I think so. So in that particular few points, I comment on this, and once again I congratulate Dr. Kapil Dahal, because Kapil and his family had COVID-19 within last 10 days. So now he is surviving little bit of recovering himself, but within that particular things, he promised me to deliver his lecture in 28th, and he told me yes, it is very important for us. Thank you, Kapil, for giving sharing your ideas with us, and hopefully in future we will also interact in the different various platforms. Yes, this is the beginning, and in the coming time we will also incorporate other distinguishing eminent anthropologists from India and other parts of the Asia. So after completing Asia, we will have the plan to incorporate Africa, America, and also Europe. So it will make the big challenge for us, and hopefully we'll succeed, because as a team we are working with Ratna, Tharaka, Dr. Ratna, Suchishmitan, or Pushpalata, and all teams are working, and hopefully in the coming time we'll gain very eminent way. So before we end up, we are very fortunate that one of our eminent anthropologists, Professor Anup Kapoor, just joined, and Professor Kapoor, he was the former head at the Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi, and also he was the former vice chancellor of the Zoology University of Gwalior. So may I request Professor Kapoor to comment on this? I know that you've been in this platform a few times back, and also you came. Professor Kapoor, can you hear me? Professor Anup Kapoor, can you hear me?
I think he is speaking, but it's not audible.
Yeah.
Kindly unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
Now is it okay?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, I'm sorry. In between, the battery went down,
Okay.
so I could not attend. Now I have charged, so I thought in the last moment I should attend.
It's your pleasure, sir. Yes, please, sir.
Yeah, to Kapil, I want to make few suggestions, or I would like to say something that I have seen that most of the European or American anthropologists, they have contributed to the central part of the Himalayas, like in near Kathmandu only, and very American anthropologists, those who had covered the eastern biological anthropologists who have covered the eastern part of Himalayas because they want to study the high altitude dimension of populations. But I have noticed that the people, except Hammondorf, in mid 70s, I was carrying out my fieldwork in the Himalayas, in the central Himalayas, and I had a chance to go to Nepal also. I have worked also in district Dharchula, and you must be knowing Humla Jumla district and Banthari, so forth, where I have studied the Khampas, the Rajis, and the other caste groups, which you have mentioned, that in Nepal also caste groups. I always say that Nepal is the second Hindu country where after India it comes, the Hindu system is there. But I was surprised that most of the people have done on the eastern central, but not only one or two people, they have worked on the western part of Himalayas.
Yeah.
I have seen that Hammondorf, he could not come, but he has sent his student. I still remember, and the name of the student was Naveen, who had completed his master from Punjab University, and he was in working in the project of Hammondorf. And later on, Hammondorf published a book, Himalayan Traders, where he talked about the Bhotias or Khampas of Nepal, but he could not collect data from the Indian side of Bhotias. So I want to know what was the reason. Now there is no problem of fire and so on and so forth. Why people are not going to western part of Himalayas to carry out anthropological study?
Yes, Kapil, you can proceed.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Professor Kapoor, for your please.
Should I repeat?
Yes, Professor Kapil, we are hearing you. No problem. You can proceed.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Kapoor, for your kind question. Officially, there is no restriction now to conduct research in Western Himalaya and other parts of Nepal as well. But because of this, you have already conducted research among the Khampas. Because of I think because of this Khampa issue, there is still some kind of restriction in Mustang district now and Dolpa. But in other parts of the country, there is no problem. And actually, we also discussed earlier while talking to, while I was responding to Professor Rahim Mondal and Professor Joshi, that actually it is easier in Nepal to get resource visa than in comparison to India. So there is no official restriction. But in Mustang, still there is some problem. There is some restriction.
Okay. Because of restriction, as these American or foreign anthropologists cannot cross Indian border. They cannot go to the border areas of in Himalaya.
Yeah.
That is the main problem.
And I think there will be some kind of restriction from the Indian side to go to Darchula area of Nepal because we cannot go to Darchula.
Now you can come from Darchula to Dharchula. We have what you call the Tehsil Dharchula, DHAR, and you have Dharchula, DAR. And Nepalis, they can come up to Dharchula, but they cannot cross the Tawaghat, where the borderline starts. Nowadays, the government of India is going to make a bridge between over Kali River between Dhaarchula and Dhaarchula. That's good news for anthropology. It will be easy for them to move. Indian anthropologists can go to Dhaarchula. There is no restriction, as you have said. But Nepalis, because I still remember the Hammeldorf student, they were pulling me to take them to Bya Chodas Dharma Valley. But that was not feasible at that time because you have to take the permission from Government of India or district magistrate. Anyhow, you gave very good talk, interesting talk. You talk about the anthropological researches in Nepal. And I hope that the anthropologists of Nepal and India and some other Asian countries, they will collaborate on some dimensions of ethnic or population groups in Himalayas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Kapil. Dr. Ratna, that we can proceed and yes, just got 2 hours, so it will be the
now
vote of
I
thanks.
would like to request Puspalata Tigga, Assistant Professor, Department of Anthropology, Mrinali Datta, Mahavidyapith, for both thanks.
Thank you, Ratan sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank all organizing committee, Chief Advisor Dr. Chamlia A.D. Nahalage from Sri Lanka, University of Jayawardene, and our principal sir Dr. Apurva Bandyopadhyay, Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, and principal Dr. M.Q. Khan from DNGC College, our coordinator Dr. Suman Chakraborty sir, our head of the Department of Anthropology in Mrinalini Datta Mahavidyapith, joint convener Dr. Ratan Tayang sir, Dr. Taraka Ananda ma'am from Sri Lanka, Dr. Suchismita Sen Chaudhary from MDM, and our all members, Ms. Gopi Riba ma'am, Ms. Tanusri Polly ma'am, Ms. Saswati Roy ma'am. And today is our lecture number 11. I would like to thank invited speaker Dr. Kapil Babu Dahal sir for his fruitful and informative lecture. Rahim sir, thank you Rahim sir for your presence here. Anup Kapoor sir and all the participants who are present and give their time for great success. Thank you sir. Thank you Ratan sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.